are in place that are impacting people's real lives.
All right, we need to get to higher IQ
Where their source
content. Myron's high IQ, the viewers in space are not.
How's it going?
We need some real high IQ stuff here.
Been a little bit. This is a public video. This is not a paywall video, so I'm gonna do my best to keep it public friendly. Don't want to upset people too much. Don't want to get people too riled up. So I'll keep it cool in this video. This is what, the 20.
Bro's just walking on the side of the road, pulled over his car. I'm gonna go walk in this grass. I'm gonna get a video with this grass.
7th of December, something like that. I am in beautiful Oregon. Beautiful Oregon.
Oh.
For another week or so, a little bit less maybe. And we do be enjoying.
Just a chill guy.
Do be enjoying. It's a very beautiful place. So this week has seen a tremendous amount of civil strife. I guess you could call it. It's a debate, spirited debate. It's not really.
Florida Groper, stop, dude. Stop.
And it is.
You're welcome, Harsh. Excuse me?
Between the, roughly anyway, the tech bro wing of MAGA.
Dude, I love the LARP they do. I love the LARP they do, like the LARP clothes.
I think you could say that this partly includes a lot of immigrants, a lot of tech immigrants, and it also partly includes the crypto space, which is an interesting development, but it seems like a lot of voices. Of course, the tech bros are led by Elon Musk, who above board is the wealthiest person on the planet, above board, and one Vivek Ramaswamy, who has an interesting past, much of which he scrubbed from social media before he came out in support of Donald Trump, which is interesting.
Florida Gripper, you can't even beat yourself. Your brain is destroying you.
Tech bros are led by them, but
you have psychosis.
There's a lot of immigrants, a lot of Asian immigrants who have most certainly benefited from the H-1B and O-1 visas, which were supposed to be capped at 150,000. The H-1 was, at least. And they haven't, of course, they haven't. So these people are here.
I'm commenting just to get a visitor update from Myron. Nice.
America, because of government cheating and lobbyist cheating. And of course, they're here because of a broken immigration system. That's the fundamentals, right? That's the
living the dream
at play. But yeah, I've been surprised to see that a lot of crypto bros are also in this camp. And these people have been quarreling with, I guess you could roughly say, American nationalists, Middle America. They have been quarreling with Middle America. If you really were to depict the sides in this battle, it would be the Middle Americans versus the tech bros. Techno bros, the tech bros. And it's been a pitched battle all week. And you know, Elon Musk had some trouble. He's really lost, I think he lost his temper. He had some trouble with some of the things people were saying. And just sort of resorted to calling people retards, subtards, and stuff like this. And
subtards.
Agreeing with people calling.
I'm gonna start calling people subtards.
Retards. He favors highly skilled immigrants to the United States. He then clarified this statement by saying that he wanted the top 0.01% of skilled immigrants, which I think falls under the O1 visa. And he's said many times in the past, he wanted to streamline America's legal immigration system in order to make it much more accessible and navigable for immigrants. I don't want to speak too much on Elon because I think he's a kind of a dangerous person, and I don't think he's behaved in the most savory way this week. And so that's not really the focus of my video. I just want to sort of zoom out a little bit and
the 10,000 foot
describe
picture.
what I think is going on. But tensions are heated right now, and a lot of people on Twitter lost their verified badges.
This nigga's so small he walking on a peach.
This battle.
Microscopic ass nigga.
Their
Nice.
subscriptions as well, which is rather disturbing. You know, again, just putting in consequences for speech for the upteenth time, as if that works, but that is the world we're heading into. And
Yeah, I haven't lost my badge yet.
I wanted to do a bit of a zoom out and just describe really what I think is going on.
Paul, should I read your books? Yeah, go for it.
And that is that there is what I would term a form of economic extremism in the United States, which has been taken advantage of, the U.S. government has been taken advantage of, or has been used, really. It has been used as an implement to leverage economic migrants into positions of wealth and influence that they would not otherwise have. And so the important thing to remember here is the use of the state. It is the powers of the state. And so you don't want to get too lost in the, how would I put it, the charm and charisma and the talking points of people who have benefited from this system. And it is a form of cheating economically. And these people are, you know, these are like people from elite schools. These are people that have come over on elite visas. You know, Elon Musk himself has come over on a student visa. He says it's a problem to create training centers in America for top engineering talent, homegrown top engineering talent. And that's not even to mention all the problems, right? All the affirmative action, DEI, race-based, ethnic nepotism problems going on in the schools, especially the top schools of America.
I'm falling asleep.
That is conveniently glossed over by these
Wow, thank you. $3. I appreciate it.
predators, or these economic extremists broadly in this camp. I'm not naming anyone specifically, but people broadly in this camp, a lot of them seem to be of this ilk. And this is just passed over, right? And I do see a bit of addressing the underlying issues going on. Actually, I see a lot of it coming out of the Middle American camp. And it's important to note that, you know, when it comes down to power, like everything is gene wars. And so we have this power struggle going.
Why is he so out of breath? What are you doing? You're walking, dude. How are you this out of breath? What are you doing? You're walking in a field.
On between Middle Americans who don't want to be cheated and in a sense legally dispossessed, and then we have these highly intelligent,
What's up, Black Swan?
extremists.
We're not sure what he's talking about yet, and we're only 8 minutes into it.
Leverage the power of the state over Middle America, railroad Middle America, sneer at Middle America as they do it.
Apparently he's trapped on a peach.
You know, what you see out of these economic extremists is that they are brandishing very often the amount of money they make or the amount they have paid in taxes.
Yeah, we'll give him 30 to 60 minutes. We'll give them approximately half an hour to an hour to start making a point.
Amount of people they've employed, and they act as if this is some great civic service. Oh, well, my taxes have gone to fund the services that you use. And this just isn't true, because we're in a situation of robbing the future through the issuance of debt through these central banks. And so, you know, the average taxpayer is not really seeing a return on this money that they're robbed of by the state every year. And so really it is kind of a moot point to be saying like, oh, well, I pay more in taxes than you, so therefore I'm more entitled as an American. Especially, it's kind of a strange talking point for a first or second generation American to be bringing up. It's like, but your family line wasn't paying taxes all that long ago. Let's say it's a valid talking point, like your family line wasn't even paying taxes to the American government like 25 years ago or 30 years ago. It's just kind of strange. It's one of these strange kind
You're right, Simon Asuke.
of things that you can offer a bunch of rebuttals to, but it's best not to get caught up in. The measure...
Simon Asuke, Florida Graper is having a schizophrenic episode, and he still is having it. And he's mentally ill, and he needs to log off the internet for like 3 months. But he refuses to. He refuses to, so he's trying to find secret messages in my books now.
of worth of a person is really not down to how much they can earn. And, you know, this presupposes a bunch of affirmative action.
How much storage does your PC have? I have 3 multi-terabyte SSDs hooked up.
Have been non-whites, which is just blatant anti-white discrimination. And then, of course, the Hart-Celler Act was a form of anti-white discrimination, anti-Middle American discrimination. And it was a form of fraud perpetrated on the American people, rushed in, just like the income tax, right? Just like the Federal Reserve Act. Rushed in without the consent of the people, without the people being asked. And so when people say like, well, I'm an economic migrant, and that's Americanism, that's what makes an American.
Imagine if a real hunter just shot him in the head thinking he was a deer. Yo, look at that, that's a deer, and shot him in the head. His head exploded on camera. What if that happened? If that happened, that'd be crazy.
This just simply isn't true. And I guess we could get into a little bit what makes
I did not see the Cernovich. Vic Cernovich.
You know, an American.
Cernovich. I call him tranny bitch. Cernovich.
More to do with, if you look at the roots of the
He blocked me.
Revolution, one of the fathers of the American ideologically or philosophically, the
Oh, Bronze Age pervert. Everyone I don't like is a bot. Bronze Age pervert. Everyone I don't like is a bot.
fathers of the American Revolution was John Locke. And John Locke was really big on better parenting practices. And so when these highly intelligent, but we'll get into that. We'll get into the intelligence question here in a minute. When these highly intelligent, aggressive, sort of economic migrants show up to America and make these fabulous fortunes, you have to remember that they are showing up to a social civic infrastructure that they had no part in building out. Is this the best place? This is a nice, real sunny place, but I might be squinting a lot. Anyway, so they haven't contributed to this, and in a sense, this is what it means to be American, is to have contributed to this. And we see that a lot with the child rearing practices of the pioneers and settlers and the city founders of America who built the great Midwestern.
Nigga, what are you saying? What are you even saying, bro? Nobody's listening. You have to be a little more clear, a little more direct. Get a grip.
Cities, and some of the Western cities, all of them actually, and who settled the lands and set up the agricultural base, which allowed the industrial base to flourish. So it is these people who have had children in America. Of course, this is enshrined in the first acts of Congress and all this.
Now, do you think if Elon Musk had put his trans son up for adoption before he became trans, and then Steve Franssen had adopted Elon Musk's son, that son still would be a son instead of his daughter?
For their progeny, they established this land. And this personality is heritable. 80% of personality is heritable. So this disposition from these people born of the American Revolution has been handed down through the generations. And I roughly call this Middle America. That's an old Sam Francis term. And these people are seeking to undo a lot of the legal predations and corruption of the 20th century and the Bush and Obama year and Biden year abuses of the legal system in order to grant competitive favor to outgroups. This is what is going on in the United States. And so there is a lot of uproar about this from the economic migrants who have shown up, who had nothing to do with establishing the legal systems that favored good child rearing practices and
The poor Walker.
honest.
I never seen anybody else in one of his videos, so it's nice to confirm that he's around people.
Entrepreneurial exchange, we can just say roughly. And it's not to get a little distracted because there's all these liberals around here. Get a little distracted when I'm
Rugged Farmer sure has pure cardio. Yeah, I wonder if I'd be surprised. It'd be interesting to see if I had better cardio, if I got less out of breath doing this just from doing exercise boxing.
So, you have to think some of the, because this is just like a power struggle, and some of this really does boil down to gene sets, and there is starting to be a solidarity around the Middle American gene set that is really spooking the powers that be, the people that have established these clandestine government programs and these by hook or by crook immigration programs that no one was consulted on. There's starting to be this solidarity in the gene set, the Middle American gene set. And there is this a huge ideological weapon that I call economic extremism that is being put forth by the economic migrants who are fresh to America. And they're saying that Americanism,
Yeah, he should be riding a horse. That's a good point. He's not a real trad guy. He's not riding a horse. He's walking like a city slicker.
Around terms present in long-standing present in the land, and so
yeah, dude, we get it. We get it, dude. There's Americans and then there's non-Americans, and Americans did all the work. Now non-Americans want to come to America and get all the benefits and punish the Americans.
This idea of like Bush saying, we are going to root out terrorists wherever they are, you're either with us or against us, is a very clever hijacking of the language in order to take America's honor culture and apply it to wars of colonial expansionism in the Middle East for Israel. There, I've come out and I've said it. But a similar tactic is being used. I'm going to find a nice rock to sit on, like off the beaten path, because, I don't want to bump in a bunch more liberals. This is a new front in this ongoing war against Middle America, because Middle America has to be stamped out for a wide variety of reasons. I mean, if you're good to your children, you're going to be wildly competitive, and there are a lot of people that don't want that happening. So this wedge that is being driven by these economic migrants is an ideological wedge, which is to say that Americanism is commensurate with a person's earning power. And so then they sweep under the rug.
Let's see if he gets out of breath sitting on the rock.
All the massive, like Nigerians have like a 72%, this, was very famously covered by Peter Brimelow in his 1992 book, I forget the name of it, but like Nigerians have like a 72 or 76% cheating rate on their admissions tests, something like this. And, there's massive fraud going on out of India as well. And then a lot of the anti-white discriminatory practices of the universities, which some people will give pushback on, which, I mean, we can, that's like a whole rabbit hole to fall into, right? And then, the corporate hiring practices, and then the banking system itself, which, there has been this competitive disadvantage. Since Americans have faced central banking the longest, they have been weighted, in a sense, they have been disadvantaged for the longest to the heaviest tune. And this is never factored in by these economic migrants to say, well, your worth as an American, Americanism is tied in with your earning power. They never mention this. So they have not suffered under central banking, like Americans have. No country has suffered under central banking. Other than, I don't know, maybe you could say the French, or maybe you could say the English. But those people, they never, those people from those ethnicities, they never, those people from those ethnicities never give trouble to the Middle Americans because they're going through their own problems and having a hell of a time with the economic migrants and, just general, deluge from the rest of the world. Anyway, so this clever wedge is to say that, well, because I came here and I'm an economic migrant and I've performed really well, like I have, my say is worth just as much as yours in this American corporation, or whatever you want to call it, this American governmental system. My say, in fact, is worth more than yours, is so often what they assert. And it's a tricky bit of sophistry to deal with because when you have been systemically sort of been pushed out of high finance, banking, obviously those were the first to go, but when you have, further and further been encroached upon by secret societies and by dark government programs and
Thoughts? He should have been spanked more. He needs to get spanked.
By a really intense in-group strategy of the people that run the central banks.
Florida Grandpa, you are just being obnoxious here. Stop spamming. Go take a month off on the internet, dude.
You're at a competitive disadvantage, and so your ability to come and meet these people on the battlefield of their terms is automatically at a lower position. And
you're letting me get to you. You're annoying me. You're not getting to me. You're annoying me. Because the thing is, I can go here, the chat room. I can push this, and I can ban you. Or I can time you out. I'll time you out. Come back next week. You're timed out for 7 days. Relax. You're not getting to me. You're annoying me.
Well, American culture celebrates slackers and all this. But of course, the American culture...
You're no better than Elon?
Okay. I mean, because the point that this Vivek person tries to make is that, TV shows in the 90s, when I was here in America as a first-generation immigrant, these TV shows, they prized people like having fun and being dumb. That's like his broad reading, which is just, basically a very self-serving reading on the media of the 90s. But there is this element, anyway, of not prizing the STEM fields, and this is true, And so, because there's a kernel of truth in this, there's a bird in this tree, by the way. It'd be cool to get video of it. Because there's a kernel of truth in this, it rings true for a lot of people to say, oh, well, yeah, America does have this broken culture. And yeah, so Whitey, get with the program, fix your culture. And, there's this total, sidestepping around that television was basically the gates of blood. There was no free speech on television. And so you were watching tightly controlled programming that was funneled through television stations and such that were highly controlled by the state. And so, but people are people don't think from first principles, and people don't think that far back, and people are just sort of caught up. And there's this demagoguery, right? This very clever demagoguery in...
Hey, Paul, can you stop whining and be a man, or are you incapable of accepting criticism? You are timed out on Cozy as well. Relax, dude. Stop. I'll do it when you go to Rumble. Go to Rumble so I can time you out in Rumble too. Bro, stop being so needy and weird.
Present in what Vivek is saying. Because, yeah, by all means, America is falling behind on all these educational metrics and such. And so it rings true for a lot of people. Well, the culture is bad. And it's but if you actually look into the provenance of the people that were producers on these shows and directors on these shows, you start to see a broader pattern emerge. You're not supposed to bring that up, right? You're not allowed to bring that up because you will be blocked. You will be blocked by a lot of these blue checkmark people that feasted in the liberal era of censorship that now have accumulated huge follower counts. And if they block you, then you're essentially shadow banned in the algorithm. And so in this way, yet again, public discourse in America on what is supposed to be this free speech platform called X is once again highly coordinated and directed by the left. And so in this way, these economic
Meaningless rambling, yeah.
extremists, and I'll get it more into that term, have really done a Trojan horse on the American people. And because the American people needed relief economically, they went for Trump, this figurehead that is promising to lower energy prices and therefore lower grocery inflation. Grocery prices were the #1 issue for Americans this past election cycle. And so the American people were willing to make this deal, basically. And it's a very bum deal. It's not one that I was for, and I didn't vote for Donald Trump. And I don't belong to a political party. And the future is yet unwritten, but I mostly am trying to come at this from a philosophy and peaceful parenting angle, as you can imagine with me mentioning the John Locke and American Revolution stuff. So the economic extremists, I mean, they prize, this is that old meme that used to be really popular, I think, before it was sort of smashed down, but is yet coming back up in public discourse. It's that old thing, like, is a nation its GDP? And this nominal GDP raise of like 1% a year or whatever, is that worth trading all of the national character, all the volkish characteristics of a nation? And the economic extremists say yes, it is. And the middle Americans and the nationalists, and I think people that just generally are more with it in terms of peaceful child rearing practices, they say no. And I'm a little confused on this too, because I've seen a lot of Bitcoiners come out. Bitcoiners are supposed to be the sound money guys, and they're like totally for the highly skilled immigrants coming to the United States, and they say it's like they poo-poo the economic protectionism of basically middle Americans developing an in-group strategy. They say that this is like, oh well, you're so pathetic, you don't even want competition. But these people sidestep around power questions and who has been running America, and also they're not, another thing too is that these people aren't really artists. And I think someone like William Luther Pierce would probably agree with me in broadly characterizing white people as a race of artists and philosophers. And I don't see a lot of that from the Bitcoiners. I don't see a lot of quality. In fact, I don't see any. I don't see any of an artistic sort of soulful mindset. And, that's like that really, to think that way sort of flies in the face of the economic extremists who place profits over everything else. And, it's kind of a funny way to come at it because, the moment you see profits and there's no other consideration for that, profits alone.
Bro, talk.
Or profits above all, and not in some Aristotelian mean, is the highest consideration by which a just and righteous society is formed. When you start pressing back against that idea, I think you get in trouble with some people that are ideological anarcho-capitalists, or they are broadly given over to capitalism, and they don't think about anything else. And I put the well-being of children, and particularly the innocence of children, in all social formulations above profit. That is my perspective. And so I do very much disagree with these people who say, well, I was a successful entrepreneur, and so that says everything about me. And and then these people come in and say, that's my Americanism. And I don't agree with this at all. If the world wants to experiment in this is the other thing too. It's like, I had been really unimpressed with the Argentina Malay people, because there is this selective anarcho-capitalism going on, where there is this auctioning off of state assets over to Israel and into international capital. And so there is no deliberate sort of downsizing of the state into the hands of the Argentinian people who have suffered the most under the predations of that state. And so it really, in this way, it is this weaponized anarcho-capitalism, this weaponized Milton Friedman sort of thing. And they're trying to do this in America, right? They're doing this with the DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency. So Vivek and Elon are small government raconteurs of sorts. They're the traveling bards of small government until it comes to
All right, you are Florida Graper, you're gone, dude.
And H-1B visas. You could probably say at least the people of their type. They're all for small government until it comes to mass migration, which is a big government program. And this is a scandal, and this is a scam. And so these people, they writhe and they scream when they get any sort of feedback. They start taking away verification badges, and they start saying, well, back to the real work of the real world, in this contemptuous, haughty manner against their detractors. And it really betrays their rage. And it tells you a lot about their childhoods too, because if you consider that you come from this background, this is, I think, where I provide the most cogent and unique and perhaps sought after commentary on this issue, is that when you look at their childhoods, the only way that you can be a 80-hour-a-week or 100-hour-a-week workaholic for a government contractor, which is, you know, in the early going particularly is replete with all these human resources mantras and watching women get passed up, or watching yourself get passed up for women, and watching one Indian get into a department and then suddenly they wriggle their way into a management position and they only hire Indians. There is a kind of soul death that you have to have experienced in childhood in order to tolerate those working conditions, and not only to tolerate, but to idealize them and to say, this is good and necessary for the world, and so therefore it should spread out and it should be spared the axe from government efficiency. And so when you imagine the childhood of these economic extremists, these are childhoods that prized economically viable performance over anything else. And this is where we sort of run into the differences between the gene set of Middle Americans who come from a contemplative philosophical background that whose real revolution across world history was to improve child-rearing techniques. And this is actually what set them apart from the European continent. And these people who had their souls crushed as children in order to perform and to achieve status. And there's an incredible cruelty in the childhood of these economic extremists. And the cruelty flows from their parents. And this outsider's disposition, yet once again, the outsider's mentality, the stranger in a strange land, once again, we have to look at the disposition of people like this.
Dude, it's crazy.
And really trace their roots so that we can understand their psychology.
Oh my
gosh. And we can understand why they act as such destroyers.
I love the wisdom.
To
I love the wisdom of this video.
Family order.
Yeah, he's
of
Jewish.
European society. And this is a lot of what is going on. And unless we talk about the childhood, we are just going to get sort of lost in the weeds. You know, getting really hung up on Americanism, or like your hypocrisy, my hypocrisy, blah, 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 blah. The fact of the matter is that Western values have nothing to do with breaking children in childhood so that they will play Chopin better at the recital, or they will, you know. And some people would argue, like, well, the spelling bee, studying for the spelling bee as an Indian didn't break me, but it's like, what, compared to what, right? Compared to what? Like, you either studied for the spelling bee, or you are in the slums where the child sexual abuse rate is up over 65%. I think it's much higher than that. And for girls, it's basically 100%. So the question of philosophy is always compared to what? And so people say, well, the spelling bee didn't break me. It didn't break my spirit. It didn't break my soul. We have to rely on self-reporting, right? As opposed to like viewing that with any sort of informed philosophical metrics given to us over time by our great European philosophers. And we just rely on the self-reporting of people who have an obvious self-interest in economic extremism and migratory sort of, I mean, if you just look at how people use the ecosphere.
Yeah, I could never live in Portland or Oregon or Washington or California, unfortunately. Because believe it or not, this is like the level of people there thinking wise.
They use it and they burn it up, right? And then this government contracting role, which is one of the most flagrantly abusive sort of economic activities you can partake in terms of loving.
What's up, GT Groypin?
And such. So, yeah, and you know, some people are like naturally predisposed to remembering words, but that's no sort of childhood, right? And so this gene set that honors the childhood is under severe duress. And, you know, someone that I listen to a lot says that it's Bitcoin or bust. And some people even say that Bitcoin solves everything. And sometimes I wonder about that because I look at who owns Bitcoin and I look at who is capturing a lot of Bitcoin right now. And, you know, it fixes the money. It puts a lot of incentives in place to love and care about children. And I think that's well and good, but there is this short to midterm difficulty in the world where the Bitcoiners seem to be really the ones that have taken a stance, they seem to be really in the camp of the economic extremists. And there is this sneering sort of Nietzschean, like, well, because we out-earn you, we are superior creatures to you. Even though, if you look at like the welfare usage rates, it's like, okay, so exceptions to the rule don't prove anything. You know, we just look at net taxpayers. And then, you know, there is also this observation that people have made, even the people that are like, well, Bitcoin solves everything, or Bitcoin is our best chance, or Bitcoin is bust. They even have made this observation that, well, the only people in aggregate who actually are net taxpayers, I mean, there's some East Asians, right? But who also, in addition to that, are gun rights and free speech advocates, or, you know, absolutists. The only group in aggregate is the white conservative, which is the backbone of middle America, and the people who have endured the most economic extraction from international roving economically migratory elites, right? It's
What?
gene wars, you know, it's gene wars. And so if you set aside the rhetoric, like, there is one group that appeals for universality, which is the middle.
I just realized he's doing the Molly meme for him again. Yeah.
Let's have fair play, you know. Let's have fair play. And there are all these other groups that are saying, no fair play. We are going to continue. It's going to be small government. We're going to strategically downsize the state into the hands of corporations and conglomerates and banking dynasties and such. We're going to do this, and we're going to sell it to you as this great austerity measure. And oh my gosh, aren't we getting rid of statism? And yeah, sure, it's, I guess it's better than like living through the French Revolution or something. And then you have the people that are like, wait, no, you're doing this a little too fast, and this stinks, and yet you don't want to apply these smaller government principles to the government program of mass migration. You're just trading out Mexicans for Indians. And Indians have a permanence that Mexicans don't. Because Indians don't really have, they have like an inverse group strategy. They have a strategy of We'll just call it permanent socialism. We'll call it permanent socialism. The Mexicans have their own sort of ethos, and they have their desert ways, and it's kind of a vibe, you know. Indians aren't on a vibe. And so I think it's important to just view these things, and also to not get too caught up in what the economic migrants are saying. And, you know, the economic migrants want their own form of protectionism, which is the visas and the naturalization that they did not earn because they haven't contributed to a child-respecting Western philosophical artistic society. You know, the most accomplished pianists of them are just mimics, right? They're not originals, they're not creatives. And the European people are originals. They are creatives. And so, you know, it's a big ask. It's a big ask. I'm not saying that I have the solutions, but it's good to describe these things, you know. So when these really clever, like Bitcoin-y, like tech people are like, oh, well, these damn white people, they want their protectionism. And isn't that pathetic? Isn't that pathetic? Well, but they insist on their right to be around white people, and they insist on their right to sort of take from the benefits of this property rights respecting, free speech respecting, gun rights respecting societies that these European originals created, that is, you know, singular in the history of the globe. They insist on their right, which is a form of subsidy, and which is a form of protectionism, protection from the murderous socialism of their homelands. And then, of course, there are the confused whites who have spent a lot of time outside of Middle America. And I would say that a lot of the top economic extremists sort of fit this category, no doubt. And they've just forgotten, right? They've forgotten the basis. And I think there's a lot of credence to this idea that, well, American culture is a reflection of the American people. And because Boy Meets World didn't have kids going off to like STEM academies, that now American people don't get the boot heel off of their necks, so they can train themselves and create a society that is reflective of their values, right? Because you know, a lot of the economic migratory thing, it presupposes this world vision, this world view.
Why does he always think he's gonna kill someone? Called foreshadowing. Called foreshadowing.
That is awfully convenient to government contractors and what it is that they're pursuing. So, does the world have to bend at the
This is a black person.
knee of this?
There's just a black person walking. Wait a second. Shouldn't you defend yourself? That's crazy. Actually, he's on some public trail where the fat black women walk. Bro's walking in a fat black woman trail. One of Ye's thugs.
Idea that Mars must be colonized, and that everyone must be surveilled, and that extremist activity must be tamped down using secret police and surveillance powers. Like, that is a world vision. And these economic migrants, or these extremists,
That was a ninja.
Really are extremists. They betray
Defend the ranch, shooter.
their vicious and malevolent intelligence when they come into contact with the Middle Americans. There was a very interesting exchange that was had by one Dalton Clodfelter, who I've been friendly with in the past. I don't know how he feels toward me these days, but
Ooh, Dalton called out.
you know, I did leave politics. And you know, I'm happy doing the Bitcoin and peaceful parenting thing, but look, this gene wars, man. You know, the short to midterm's not looking pretty, and I feel like I have to say a little something. He had this exchange with a person who had a voice that sounded an awfully lot like Elon Musk's. And maybe it was Kimball Musk.
I'm thinking, Adrian Dittman. Perhaps it's Elon Musk.
some sort of South African voice. And this person just had a sneering contempt for this fellow.
Honestly, though, if I was Elon Musk, I would hate Dalton too.
Point to, his service in the military as, but once you have sort of bought it, and once you sidestep the childhood, you sort of lose people. You lose a lot of people because everyone, like America has 60 million illegals in it, and it has about another 150 million non-founding stock. Is that right? Yeah, about 150 million non-founding stock. And a large share of that is people that showed up after the Civil War.
Dalton destroyed Twitter. Dalton created Gamergate for Twitter.
An incentive to care about America's conception as having to do with the founders and having to do with this, with George Washington, obviously, and his great virtue and battling back the British Empire and this Jeffersonian Hamiltonian split. The people just don't give a shit about this. They don't give a shit about Cicero or John Locke, which were the ideological fathers of the American Revolution. They don't have to care. And so you lose people when you get caught into the weeds of like Americanism and you can't speak to, the childhood. I'm not saying that was Dalton's mistake or whatever, but this guy just like pounced on, in this sneering, contemptuous way, pounced on Dalton's service in the military.
That was a good troll.
So this enables you to be racist, you piece of shit. And again, it goes back to that Straussian language wedge, which is that we must redefine America's values. We must seize the language as philosophers. Philosophy's always been this language weapon to protect the rulers, and sometimes to unseat the rulers in favor of others, which is what has happened across Europe and America and Canada. And in Canada, it's a total disaster, dude. Like, the language programming there is a total disaster. So serving the military allows you to be a racist piece of shit. That was the retort. It was just this hissing nastiness. But it tells you about that person's childhood.
That's because, Elon Musk was spanked. His butt got spanked.
It tells you about this cruelty, this status-conscious cruelty that the elite are raised with, and that's not very American, Now, there are people that want, there are people that are like, oh, there's an American elite, and there's a lot of European aristocratic presence in America in the early years, and there are people that have their own opinion there. And all I can do is speak to all I can really do is speak to the interests of children as best I can, and to the people that are future, and to protect their innocence. And so, there's some pushback there, but it doesn't really come out of this economic elite camp. So anyway, this redefining of American interests to align with globalist interests is this very clever wedge that is being driven into the language. And when these tricks don't fail, and someone just has like a basic in-group, out-group sense, which is termed racism, they have an extremely hard time with that, and they go after it really hard, and they become these sneering demons, essentially. And this is also a language-based thing, right? Because American common sense is to do with, protect the children at all costs. Circle the wagons against the outgroup, form up, right? It goes back to battle formations in the Bronze Age. It goes back a very long ways to this European, Roman, Greek, Christian language formation having to do with an in-group, out-group distinction. And this distrust, this natural distrust, and healthy anger toward cultures, languages, and peoples that are not so good for the kids.
Anonymous sent $25.
That is
chance of doing a second midweek wind-up while Nick is off.
Maybe I'll say. I'll have to talk to Keith about it.
what is American common sense. And so when a person a middle American displays this age-old common sense, they are attacked with the language techniques of the ascendant economic migrants. But this is one more thing that I want to talk about. And I get a little distracted because there's a lot of liberals about, and they hate me for what I'm saying. And there is a real physical danger in saying these things publicly. But it's good to be in rural Oregon, right? This would be another, sort of video if I were in urban Oregon. Another thing I wanted to say is that there is this assumption on the part of the economic extremists that their intelligence and their migratory patterns and their sort of, we'll just say, their use of resources is preferable. And so there's this thing that Elon Musk says, where he says that the 10% most rightward people and the 10% most leftward people are going to be really upset at my takeover of Twitter and how I moderate it. And of course, it's always, it's always this 10% of the right that is actually like 50, 60% of the right that always gets like tricked with using language. I'm going to stop here for a second. But anyways, there's this other 10%, which is these cosmopolitan, highly skilled sort of manipulators of language that work in finance and engineering and startups. And they work in law firms. And it all is clustered around government contracting and government spending, right? Because that's the most predictable, easy money to make. Like the stock market is not the stock market. The stock market is just a reflection of the government. The stock market is like 70% controlled by 5 companies, and it's just a rug pull strategy, right? If you use media to depict the stock market as the free market, you can pull a lot of rubes into it and then rug them. That's the whole basis of the stock market. Anyway, these people who live in that world, they have this assumption that they are necessary for the future of humanity and that they will...
He needs to create his own, like, Arvel type community. We need a Franssen/Arvel collab.
...set the terms going far into the future, and that their gene set, this high intelligence, high language manipulation ability that they have, is the preferred gene set. And I would caution against this assumption. I think it's, it's errant for a lot of reasons. Like, the world could really select around, this, so people have this reaction to the reversal of the Flynn effect, which is to say that world IQ is dropping. And a lot of people chalk it up to mass migration. And I think it's partly that. I think that has maybe a 40% explanatory power. But there is this drop in testosterone, and there is this drop in intelligence broadly, but mostly across people in the developed world. And so, but yet we have these economic extremists who are clustered in their own 10%, right? It's not like it's just the 10% of the right and the 10% of the left. There's also the 10% that plays both sides, which some people would say that Elon belongs to. I'm not sure about that. I'm leaning toward yes. But there's this other 10% that sort of co-ops both of those 10%. Maybe they're actually just a 0.01%, right? Can we stick with that? I think that's kind of nifty. There is this 0.01% of language manipulators, highly intelligent, malevolent, intelligent. There's this malevolent, intelligent gene set that presupposes that they are ascendant, that they will have this long reign, that they are necessary and important for the functioning of the world, that they serve a critical civic purpose.
Go woke, go broke.
And there is starting to be a lot of consensus that, or a lot of at least waking up to the idea that maybe this isn't the case.
Ooh.
And that maybe these people are just like, how black people have fallen out of favor and black people are no longer cool. Hip hop and all that. There does seem to be also movement in that direction.
What? What is this nigga even talking about? Relax, dude.
On this point.
Thank you, Caesar's Legion.
1% of people. These people that live in Jackson and Malibu and Aspen and the Hamptons and, you know, that build their little breakaway bunkers and on the South Island in New Zealand. There's starting to be this realization that, hey,
He doesn't like black people. Cool.
maybe you people are not all that in a bag of chips.
Black people fell off.
But they think this of themselves, right? And that explains
Black people fell off. I'm about to tell my boxing gym.
Maybe we
Steve
don't need you
Franssen
guys.
said.
Maybe-
Steve Franssen said you fell off.
all that's needed. Maybe we don't need like super technologically hyper advanced AI coding for Google. Maybe we just need timely propane delivery, and maybe we need to rid the environment of plastics for a while. Hey, maybe we need to reintroduce wildlife populations that have been poached by a lot of these invading immigrants. Maybe we need to, like what recently happened with the European bee population, maybe we need to concern ourselves with restoring the European bee population, which has gone up like 500% in the last decade. Maybe we need to concern ourselves with these sorts of things, these sorts of William J. Luther Pierce sort of things that are derivative of a race of philosophical and artistic people. Like maybe we need to do that. Maybe we don't need to be like space pedophiles on a Mars colony. Maybe we don't need to be like buggering children
Maybe.
in the Indian slum on the moon of Saturn.
Maybe.
Like maybe we don't need some like crazy technological society. And unfortunately, a lot of the Bitcoiners fall in this camp where they think that Bitcoin means that they're gonna like be able to have like real life RPG games or something. And
Now we're
they're gonna
downloading
be
information to our
in a real-life
brains.
RPG game, but it's all gonna be like space lasers and stuff like this. And it's a really crazy sort of subset of that. Maybe it's just a smaller subset, and maybe I don't know because 78% of Bitcoin holders are white. So maybe Bitcoin really is a middle America thing, and I'm just confusing the loudest voices in Bitcoin and unfairly lumping in some of the Bitcoin crowd with this intelligent, malevolent subset. So anyway, yeah, something to consider with this assumption that like, yeah, we are necessary for the functioning of the world, but the purpose of life is to spread virtue, and the purpose of philosophy is to do what is right by the children. And so if these people
What's up, Sean McCrossin? How you doing?
The universals that Christ espoused and that we can get out of philosophy, then over time they will expose their own inutility for the world's purpose.
Sean
And
McCrossin
they
is a
will fall by
celebrity.
the wayside in one form or another. And I think that's what's happening right now. The reputation of Elon Musk and Vivek, according to so many people with tens of thousands of likes on Twitter/X, has fallen so far. And are not even, well, Trump is basically the sitting president. We aren't even into his official presidency, and this is a very interesting development. So obviously he is siding with them. Obviously he's thrown his lot in and his children's lot in with someone other than Middle America. But we live in very interesting times, and we've got to do what's right for the kids. And yeah, I'm not going to be taking the side of the economic extremists. There's more to life than the GDP. And yes, getting these visas is a form of economic protectionism, and it's a sly little trick of language to pretend that it isn't. And yes, the Middle Americans have suffered under, and we could say, if you're like a central banking guy, it's like there's been other stuff, right? The income tax. They have suffered the most for the longest amount of time under the chains of enslavement from this 0.01%. All right, very good. Good to be with you. That was a public video. I hope you enjoyed it. There's spicier stuff behind the paywall. I really appreciate you being here. If you want to get a donation over to me, you can get one over to me at stephenfranssen.com/donate. I would always love a little crypto donation. It's always nice to get from you.
Why does he have
Thanks for
sweat dripping
thanks
off
for
his
being a
lips?
sub. If you haven't subbed,
Why does he have white foam at his mouth, corners of his
I
mouth?
suggest that you do, and hit the
Why do Jewish people have fish face?
notification bell or whatever they have here on Rumble and
What's with like the fish face thing?
BitChute.
I don't get
So you
it.
get notified when there's a new upload. Thanks again.
Did not learn anything. I don't even know what he was saying, honestly. I didn't pay attention.